What might be a way that I can approach a brand so that I'm starting it off on the right foot?
I think your best bet is going to do something really specific and tailored. Come with maybe 3 or 4 suggestions.
If I'm looking for influencers to work with, to market my products, what is something I might be looking at and looking for, and how will should I actually approach that influencer?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking for somebody who is consistent with your brand voice. Find somebody who gets your niche, your audience niche, and has their know, like, trust that you can build on, support, augment.
Today we're joined by Agile marketing expert, the founder of AgileSherpas.com, Miss Andrea Fryrear. Welcome to the show.
So happy to be here.
Andrea, it's my pleasure. I really love what you've built here. And before we get into all the nuts and bolts, I got to ask you firstly, what is Agile marketing? What does that mean?
So basically it means not doing the giant annual marketing plan or the extremely expensive and risky, huge advertising campaign that blows your whole budget and then blows up in your face. So it's more about iterative and frequent delivery of value to your customers, just like Agile software development was about delivering good feature updates to the users of software, right? We do the same thing, but with our marketing materials.
Yeah, so this is interesting to me because it's really important, I think, to plan out what your future is going to look like, right? I'm a big fan of Patrick Bet-David, your next 5 moves, that sort of thing. But at the same time, in this new technology-based world, things are changing all the time. Like, I had a plan going to 2021, all of a sudden Clubhouse came out. I'm like, okay, I need to pay attention to this. So when we talk about pivoting and being agile, how does that, when you're making your annual plan, how should we plan for that adjustment? Should we be reviewing this weekly, monthly, quarterly? How should we be looking at this?
Yeah, it's a good call out because you don't go into agility with like, well, whatever feels right today, that's just what I'm going to do, right? There does need to be an overarching plan, a direction that you're trying to move, right? I think of it like we're doing a cross-country road trip. We got to know where we're trying to get to. If it's New York or if it's Florida, right? Our route is going to be much different. But along the way, things are going to happen. There's going to be road closures and wrecks and traffic and things. So we have to be agile and adaptive in the short term while we do still have a longer term objective that we're trying to get to. So you still do things like quarterly, if it's OKRs or whatever your kind of planning mechanism is, those still need to be in place. But then at the shorter term, if it's a 2-week sprint or a 1-week kind of progress check, whatever you want to call it, to look and see, did the work I just did do what I thought it was going to do? And then I should do more like that? Or was that a bust and I need to pivot quickly to be on Clubhouse or whatever it might be? All the while making sure we're tracking to that ultimate objective.
So are there any KPIs, key performance indicators that we as after hours entrepreneurs should be looking after, right? And I realize that a lot of the after hours entrepreneurs are doing different things. We're running different businesses, but is there anything specifically that we should be looking at when it comes to our marketing and our pivoting and shifting throughout the year? Yeah,
I mean, one of the things that we track over at Agile Sherpas are things like whether the work actually ladders up to OKRs. So in our project management system, every work item that we have has to have a tag. Like, what OKR does this support? And I think that's really good to help keep us focused because as entrepreneurs, there's always 100 things we could be doing at any given moment. And if you start to be diligent about saying, did everything I do this week really track to something bigger? Or did I just do this thing to feel busy, to feel productive, or because someone asked me to, right? Or is it really connected? So the percentage of tasks that you did that were tied to your top priority, I think is something really illuminating to know, am I spending my time in the most impactful way?
Right. And sometimes it's really difficult to gauge that when you're in the heat of the moment, right? You're waking up and you're just going. especially if you're a solopreneur, someone working at home, building out some sort of online empire, like I know all the after hours entrepreneurs are. How important do you think it is to have people around you that can actually say, hey, you got to cut it out. This isn't working. Or, you know what, you might not be putting enough effort into this. How important is it that you have the people around you that can question what you're actually spending your time on?
Yeah, I think it's really powerful to have people be that mirror for you, because you can get really into execution mode, right? And let that kind of technician part of your brain take over and lose sight of where you're ultimately trying to get to. And so, having everybody on our team speaks the language of agility together, right? And so we talk a lot about work in progress limits, right? Limit your WIP, work in progress, limit your WIP. And that's just we will call one another out on that, right? Like, Andrea, it seems like your WIP is pretty high this week. What should you be cutting off? Because the more we try to do, the smaller amount of our day we have for all those things, right? So if I have 10 things I'm trying to accomplish today, I can only spend 10% of my time on all 10 of those things. But if I have 2, I get 50% of my time to each of those things, and I'm much more likely to actually make progress on them and move them forward instead of splitting my focus across a ton of different things.
Yeah, limit the work in progress. And this kind of hits home for me. As a business owner, as a leader, I'm helping a lot of different staff members do different things or trying to give them direction. But this can be difficult because I might have that big picture in mind. I might have that vision. I might be pivoting, but it's hard to make sure that all of your team members are keeping up with that as well. Do you do anything, or do you recommend anything to make sure that your team members, your assistants, are actually staying on task, staying on point without completely offending them and telling them your work sucks, you got to do something different? How can we actually help our team stay on track?
Yeah, I mean, Agile has awesome things for this. So the first rule of thumb is to make work visible, right? So everything should be out in the open where we can all see it. And then we can use that to hold one another accountable, hold ourselves accountable for what we're doing. The other one is a daily stand-up. And this is called that because in the before times when we were in rooms together, we would all stand up in order to encourage brevity in the conversation. And it's meant to only be 15 minutes. And it's centered around your visual board, right? So here's all the work that we're doing as a team. And what did I finish yesterday? What do I plan to work on today? And where am I stuck, right? So it's a really quick way to get input on what you're doing, help when you need it, right? And assurance that things are moving forward. And as an entrepreneur or business owner, you can really get a high level look at what all your people are doing really, really quickly and say, oh no, that's not what you should be doing right now. Like, this is the priority, stay focused on this. Or, oh, you're stuck, cool, like I can step in and help you. Or maybe Mark has capacity today to step in and, help with this. And it's a really tight decision-making opportunity that keeps everybody marching together.
Yeah, I like that idea of the daily stand-up. And I like that idea of standing up because we all know that those morning meetings that are meant for 15 minutes can easily drag and drag and drag. I hate that. I'm all about creating more content in less time so I get back to what's really important to me, to what I love, right? And the idea of just everyone's going to stand up works. One of the challenges with that concept, at least that I'm seeing for me and my business, is I've got team members all over the world. I got the Philippines, I got India, I've got South Africa. I got people all over the world. So that's difficult. What we try to do is we try to do a weekly meeting and say, hey, this worked. We look over our Hootsuite data to say, hey, what's working, what's not working, which YouTube video really took off, so that's something I focus on. Any tips for anyone that's got a team that is around the world, to make sure that they keep up? You mentioned visibility. Any tools for visibility?
Yeah. So if you're distributed, super distributed like that, then you can have a couple, right? Like an AM stand up and a PM stand up. So depending on the time zone, people come to whichever one. And then if you're there as the business owner to be at both, you can be that connective tissue between the two. So that's one way to get around it. But again, if we're on Monday.com is the tool that we use at AgileSherpas. So different groups would have different boards, right? So we have a board that's covering all of our content creation. We have a board for all of our marketing and sales activities. We have a board for, we're migrating CRMs right now. So all that work is on a board. And then you can tag people and say like, hey, at Mark, I need your opinion on this, or I need feedback on this new thing, or this is done now and I'm starting this other thing. So it's great because I can dig in at any moment that I want and understand where the work is and who's doing what. So that can really help bridge the gap if you do want to do more like a weekly status meeting.
Yeah.
If you've got the work visible, then you can touch it at any time.
Yeah, no, I think visibility is really important in things like this. We use Trello, we use Slack to kind of keep things above board, but I'm always looking for that next tool. And by the way, everyone, you can definitely check out Andrea at AgileSherpas.com and get more information on how she's executing there. Cool. So let's keep moving it along here. Marketers have a pretty bad name. I'm not going to lie, Andrea. We got a bad name. I've heard it said that the people that are least trusted are congressmen and congresswomen, and then second is marketers. How do marketers need to evolve so that people actually trust what we're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, so much of Agile is about customer centricity and about delivering value. And I think that is a great step, right? So it's less about me, our brand, our product, our services, like, look at us, aren't we cool? And more about how can we be a contributing voice in solving the customer's problems, right? What are you struggling with and how can we help in a way that is not salesy, in a way that is not focused on us, but is really driving toward value delivery for an audience, right? So it's content, it's resources, and that's all open, right, and available. And that helps. And I think too, Agile is all about rapid iteration and real-time connection. And that's what people expect as well.
Yes.
If you go away and are silent for 6 weeks while you craft your next perfect campaign, people have utterly forgotten about you. Like, they expect you to be there and in their life all the time, in a valuable and non-salesy way. And Agile is there to help us deliver that value frequently and be able to do those quick responses instead of, every 6 weeks we have to do some sort of rigid campaigning.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of reminds me of something that Gary Vee is always talking about. Like, don't sell, just provide useful information. Just keep delivering that useful information, because once someone gets that small win, they're like, they get hungry for more. And that's really what I try to focus on, at least on this show, is let's give people as many wins as possible. So, they keep coming back, and I found that to be very effective. So again, just kind of diving a little bit deeper into this concept of gaining trust as marketers. In the past, basically when I think of marketing, I think of, running ads on billboards, running ads in magazines, on TV. The landscape has changed. So I'd like to hear from you, Andrea. What's something that you're really excited about going into the future? What are some marketing opportunities that maybe we haven't heard of before?
It is interesting how the approach, right? The way that we communicate with people has changed. And those older styles of communication, right? Magazines, billboards, radio, those kinds of things were not conducive to Agile, right? Because you put a billboard up and it's done.
Yeah.
Like, you can't go and iterate on that thing. But now that we have digital channels, we can put these micro pieces of content in front of people and gauge their reaction. Good reaction, great, let's do more like that. Negative reaction, awesome. It was a small experiment, we'll throw it out and try something new. So digital was really the only way that Agile was ever going to work. And now that we have that, I don't have like my magic crystal ball handy to say like what the next amazing channel is going to be, but whether it's Clubhouse or whether it's TikTok, right? There's always these things that are coming quickly at us. And for marketing to be effective, it's got to be able to get on there, see if it's right? Is our audience there? Are our customers excited and using that new distribution medium? And if they are, we need to be there too, right? Quickly and in a value add way, not like heads down, let's execute against our plan no matter what's going on around us. So it's more about, I think, I'm a process nerd and just having a process that will let you be responsive in that way. so that when it's appropriate, we go there and we experiment and we learn, instead of just like sticking with the thing we know because we know it and it's comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't agree any more with you, Andrea. I actually dedicate specific time in my week to trying new things. I mean, just earlier this day, I was chatting with this gentleman, Brimstone. He was a professional wrestler who's now a professional podcaster, getting like over 4 million listens a week. And this is exactly what we talked about. It's about trying the new thing. And we actually recorded live in Clubhouse, and it was a little choppy. It was a little choppy, but that's what it's about. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about. You got to keep trying the new things. And so speaking of new things, and this is maybe not brand new, influencer marketing is kind of that buzzword, right? And the reason I think this is so powerful is because influencers basically are building know, like, and trust with their audience, mm-hmm. right? So I want to actually play this both ways, Andrea. So first off, I want to say, if I'm looking for influencers to work with, to market my products, what is something I might be looking at, looking for, and how should I actually approach that influencer?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking for somebody who is consistent with your brand voice, right? It's going to be jarring if you're pretty like buttoned up and straightforward in your own marketing styles and your brand voice, and then you go with someone who's kind of edgy and swears a lot, right, on their channel. It's going to be weird. Even if they're talking to your audience, if there's a disconnect, it's not going to work as seamlessly as you want it to. And so I think there's a need for consistency there. But ultimately, for me, it's about alignment in the niche, right? So like find somebody who gets your niche, your audience niche, and has their know, like, trust that you can build on, support, augment, right? I don't want to, mm-hmm. It's not piggybacking, right? It should be very much a partnership where it's actually useful. I mean, we've all watched that YouTube video or listened to that podcast where there's some kind of like weird product or service that you're like, I don't want that. And it feels off. It makes you less engaged as an audience member because it feels like, I thought this person got me and now they're trying to sell me this weird random thing that I don't want. So making it a real mutually beneficial partnership, I think helps both you and the influencer to succeed, and it helps the audience, right? Which again is what we should be fixated on anyway, is delivering value and contributing in a helpful way.
Very interesting. So I want to kind of flip the shoe onto the other foot in as far as the influencer trying to connect with the company or the business. So as an influencer, it's really kind of difficult to get a gauge for what your value is, for what your worth is. If I'm an influencer, and let's say I host a podcast called The After Hours Entrepreneur, and I'm on YouTube and I'm on all these different platforms, what might be a way that I can approach a brand so that I'm starting it off on the right foot, right? Should I just reach out and say like, hey, I want to run your ads on my show? Should I, like, what's a good way for me to actually reach out to a brand to try to provide that agile style advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I think your best bet is going to do something really specific and tailored for them, right? Like, I've investigated your product and I think that this aspect of it or this piece of it is really exactly what my audience is interested in and needs. So let's find a way to get that specific piece to them and in front of them, right? And so come with maybe 3 or 4 suggestions, right? So I think we could do that through a, straight up affiliate thing, or it could be, a free trial with a code, like, or, give it to me for free and I'll use it and share about it. There's lots of different styles of this. It's interesting at AgileSherpas, we've done some things like this with Agile project management tools where we negotiate like a deal with a vendor and then we use it in our training, right? And so people see it in action. We're getting the benefit of having a tool we can use internally. They're getting in front of potential customers, and our customers could use it, right? We only do it with tools that we really believe in and we know that will be helpful to our students. So going in with an offer of some kind, right? To say, this is how I can add value to your folks and you can add value to my folks. Instead of just like, hey, I would like you to pay me money to run ads. They get pitched things like that all the time, and it helps to differentiate you.
The idea of specificity, I think, super, super valuable there. I can't remember who said this, but I was talking, Kate Casey I actually was chatting with in Clubhouse the other day, and she mentioned this. She said, you should be looking at these brands like something is on fire and you're the only one with a hose to put it out, right? So I think if you can be specific, I think that makes a lot of sense. I really, really like that idea. And, speaking of which, everyone, Andrea does have a special offer for you. After Hours Agile is the code if you want to look at some of the tools that Andrea is offering at AgileSherpas.com. That's After Hours Agile. After Hours Agile from AgileSherpas.com. Cool. Awesome. So I want to lean a little bit more into the future of marketing is super interesting to me, right? And these kind of collaborations. Is there anything that you noticed on your State of Agile marketing report that isn't working? And let me give a little bit of context here. One of the things that Andrea mentioned to me before we got into the show is that something they're very, very proud of is their marketing report. Is there anything that you're noticing just isn't working now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, one of the things that marketers told us they're really struggling with still is unplanned work. So just things that you didn't anticipate that come your way. And I think that when we get back into kind of how do we set up systems and processes that allow us to be agile and responsive, but not feel like our hair is always on fire, right? Because the unplanned work is always disrupting the things we should be doing, is really important. So, in the Agile world, there's kind of Scrum is the thing that we hear about a lot, where you plan sprints that last a couple of weeks. And that works pretty well until you're halfway through and some big bomb gets lobbed into the middle of your planned work and it all blows up. So looking into things that are a bit more flowy, like their continuous flow, and it's kind of whatever's important I'm working on now, and you worry less about the time-boxed planning. Kanban, Kanban, is the framework that tends to be more applicable there. So I think it's just getting too fixated on I've got to do this and then that and then this, right? And being a little bit more responsive, agile, adaptive, whatever the adjective is that we want to talk about. Because marketers can't predict, right? We won't be able to know what our audience is really going to like, what ads are going to resonate, when the KPIs the floor is going to fall out, and we're going to have to address whatever that problem was. So being able to be reactive in a good way without losing sight of, like we were talking about earlier in the chat, the big North Star that you're trying to achieve. That's really the sweet spot.
100%. So I want to get something super practical from you, Andrea, not necessarily marketing related, but I love this idea of systems, of being efficient, working smart, not hard. How do you, Andrea, eliminate unplanned work? Because I'm tired of having bombs dropped into my lap. I got to know, how can we stop the unplanned work, Andrea? Help me.
I wish I had the magic wand to stop unplanned work completely. The way that I deal with it personally, I have my Trello board. I'm definitely a Trello fan. And I will not work on more than 2 things at any given time. And it doesn't matter if they're planned, unplanned, emergency, or whatever. I have a strict whip limit of 2. So if unplanned work comes along, it gets documented, right? I'll put it on a Trello card, and it goes into my backlog of things that I need to do. But if I'm already working on 2 things, it doesn't get started right now. And what I've discovered many, many times is that thing that seemed so urgent and necessary in the moment, if it sits for 12, 24, 36 hours in my backlog and doesn't get touched, by the time I have my 2 things done and I'm ready to start on something else, it's actually not that amazing or urgent, right? Yeah. It felt so like that in the moment, but if you let it sit, it turns out to be well, actually, I should do these other things first. And so I think unplanned is kind of sometimes good, right? Sometimes jump on it and do it, right? It's the right thing to do. But other times it's actually a distraction or a disruption that we need to kind of, put some barriers around and keep it from derailing us.
Yeah. I mean, being in the service-based business, I think this is really an important concept, because if you set the precedent with a client that as soon as they email you, you're getting an answer right back, you've just kind of like signed your own death warrant, right? Because now you're setting that expectation. If you set the expectation of, okay, I have a 24 or 48 hour turnaround time, now you don't feel that sense of impending doom. That being said, some of these clients might be huge clients, but even so, you got to set a precedent. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a client call me last night, not a client yet, I should say, call me at 4:50. Our normal hours are 9 to 5, right? Calls me at 4:50 and says, I need this right now. And I said, okay. All right. And we start going through it. And then 5 minutes into it, he's like, I'm really busy. How long is this going to take, type of thing? I'm like, we're not getting off on the right foot right now. Have you ever had a time where you've had to fire a client? I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, we have, right? Like, we do agile transformations, and if people aren't ready, it will be a horrible experience for everyone, right?
Yeah.
If it's being mandated and the teams aren't ready, or whatever the scenario is. Yeah, I mean, we walk away from teams that just aren't ready. It won't go well, right? It's a waste of our time and their money. It's not going to work. So it's rare. Most of the time when people come to us, they are ready, but occasionally they think they are and they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's why it's good to continue to refine your onboarding process, because the better your onboarding process is, the sooner you can kind of weed out someone that's not going to be a fit, Right. Right. I think that's important. Cool. So listen, we're talking here to Andrea Fryrear here, president, co-founder of AgileSherpas.com. You can use code word after hours Agile to get a sweet, sweet discount on the product and services. But before I let you go, Andrea, it's time for Overrated Underrated. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Overrated, underrated, Rocky Mountains.
Oh, underrated.
Yeah, I like skiing in the Rockies, so I can't deny that. Overrated, underrated, YouTube.
Over.
Why do you say overrated? I got to know. Why over?
I want to like YouTube. I really do. And I have a couple channels that I do really like, but most of the time, I don't think people have quite cracked it yet. Like, most people are still not good at making YouTube videos. So you got to work really hard to find the good ones. Yeah,
I could go really long on that, but I think that if you put in, I think it was Roberto Blake, who I've had conversations with in Clubhouse, said, you're really going to be bad until you've done at least 100 videos. Yeah. So you got to be willing to put in the time. You got to put in the time to get the benefit out. Cool. Overrated, underrated, flying on airplanes to meet people live for meetings.
I'm going to say underrated now, because I think it's going to be more important than it used to be. When we did it all the time, it wasn't that impactful, but now I think it'll be only for really important things. And so it's going to be like a really important thing to do and do well.
Yeah. Yeah. Overrated, underrated, influencer marketing.
I think it's overrated now. I think it's been done badly too many times. Yeah.
Okay. Overrated, underrated, TikTok ads.
Oh gosh. I think depending on what the ad is for, I think it could be underrated for a very particular kind of like consumer product, overrated for anything B2B or long sales cycle. Like, TikTok is not for you.
Yeah, I on TikTok, I saw this ad for this guy. He had a mask that looked like a smiling face. And I was like, he shot these really funny videos of people like yelling at him to put his mask on. He's like, my mask is on, so I can imagine that would have driven a lot of views and a lot of a lot of website hits. So pretty cool. All right, cool. Andrea, final question for you. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell Andrea?
10 seconds. 10 years ago, spend more time learning and less time watching television.
I'm with you there. All the after hours entrepreneurs agree with you. Andrea, it's been a real pleasure. I look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.